Welcome to the Born to Be Brave YouTube channel. You guys, I am so excited today because I had the opportunity. My friend Elaine Ireland is here in town, and my friend Teresa Parkin lives really close to me, but we all know each other from a group that wrote the book When Love Speaks. So welcome to the show today. Elaine lives far away. I've never met her in person, but I used to see you on Zoom every week. We did group coaching together with Maya Komarota. And so welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you for having us. Pleasure to be here again.
Isn't that fun? And yeah, Teresa's been here before. And also, Teresa was the reigning Mrs. Long Beach last year. So that's pretty good. We're with a real celebrity today.
Well, not so much, but.
Yeah, but it is pretty cool. And so, welcome. In fact, I just read both of your stories again in the book. Well, I read yours before, but I read yours right before you came. And it's interesting because how did you guys find out about like Maya and being part of the group? Because God led me to Maya, right? I had just learned how to turn on the computer, which my goal of doing this interview is so you can see, one, it's never too late to start. You're going to make incredible friends if you start doing the things that you don't know how to do, but you feel called to do. Because what happened was I was in the shower one day and God told me, you should write a book and you should start a YouTube channel and you should do all these things. And I'm like, I don't even know how to turn a computer on. Like, how would I do that? If I wanted the computer on, John would have to do it, or my assistant back in the day, right? I knew how to use my phone and my iPad. But anyway, so I was in this Zoom thing for Dean Graciosi and Tony Robbins, and this woman was speaking on the stage, and the voice God told me, you should hire that lady to be your coach. So I typed in the chat, who's the lady? Who's speaking right now? And it was Maya Komarota, right? And so I signed up for her program, and that's how voila, you guys were already in the program. So that's how I met these awesome ladies. And they had been working on a book that became an international bestseller. And I won a spot to have a chapter in the book. And last minute, because it was almost done, you guys were in edit form when I got to it. And I got last minute snuck in there and got to be part of the book. So anyway, Elaine, tell me how you guys met her and then how you met Teresa. How did you guys get in the group?
I believe I was brought into Maya's group through Leslie Rosa, a friend of mine that I had known. I think I met her through Jeanette May. So many of us had had a connection earlier with another person. So that's how I was introduced to Maya, and I was invited, I think, a 3-day weekend spot. And
so you chose yourself. You chose yourself to go to a 3-day event.
I chose myself. That's right, for self-care and self-improvement, and just to learn, more about myself and growth, and meet incredible women. And I'm a groupie. I'm a joiner. And I tend to be more of a follower than a leader for certain things. And so that's what drew me in.
Okay, that's awesome. And then Teresa, how did you meet her?
So speaking of choosing yourself, about 6 years ago, I joined Jeanette May's program and met a lot of longtime friends, still friends with not everybody, but a lot of them. And we went to a meetup that was a really big meetup, and I went by myself to this meeting and stayed with 2 women I did not know, and
bold and brave.
I mean, and first time I'd ever in 40 years of marriage gone anywhere by myself. So and decided I'm going to do this, and stayed with them, and it was life-changing to just make a choice to do that like you just did, and started friendships with them. Then subsequently through her met Maya, and ended up joining her program and doing the book and all of that. So yes, it's the choices that you can make to believe in yourself and to take action.
Yeah, and it is uncomfortable, right? Like you were scared, right?
Very.
Right? Were you scared when you went to your first thing or not?
The first thing I went to by myself was actually a meetup in Toronto with a friend of ours that we'd met. I was following her through Jeanette May because she and Teresa and Julie used to do exercise classes and workouts for us, and we would do them together. And I just really took a very, very strong liking to this woman, Tracy, and she was having a meetup in Toronto for anyone who wanted to come. So I was like, I want to go. And I, like Teresa, was paired with a roommate I hadn't met. And everything just clicked. And, you know, we did things together. We did things solo. We mostly did things together. But, you know, it was just a really great connection and a way of being brave and going out and, you know, making new friendships and taking care of yourself. So it was
The best
enjoyable.
part of that story is it's not a myopic view of your life, because there's so many people that I've met from all over. People from India I even know and talk to on a regular basis, and people from all over. And so it makes the world a bigger place, yet small enough for you to reach.
Yeah, and you have friends all over, and you realize we have this shared experience, right? And the shared, the dreams, the shared anxiousness and concerns and fears, and there's a humanity about all of us, right? That is shared, in my opinion.
I think that was one of the most enlightening things too, was to see how much more we're all more alike than different. Because initially, I think especially on Zoom calls or in front of, you know, all these individual faces, and you hear different stories, and it's easy for me. I felt myself comparing, or sometimes feeling small, or sometimes feeling the fear and feeling resistant and hesitant. And the more I listened to other women, I could tell we were all feeling that, but through each other's support and love, we were catapulted into self-confidence. And you could just see it happening over the course of time with these friendships developing and growing, and the work that we were all doing, because there was work, of course, you know.
Yeah, you're letting go of old ideas and
right.
embracing new ones,
That's
replacing
right.
them with better, higher serving philosophies and thoughts. And yeah, it's interesting. And you have to put yourself out there, right? Like, it's, you have to carve out the time, the money, and get over not knowing people. I mean, I have shared, like, when the book launch went, and I knew a few people, but not really. And we had the big book launch. I shared a room with 3 ladies that I didn't know, you know, that I barely knew. And they're some of my dearest friends now. Yeah. And so I think that when we bet on ourselves and we step into outside our comfort zone, that's where life really begins, you know. And then tell me, how did you become Mrs. Long Beach? Because that's a big deal. Long Beach is a big city that's next. You live in Long Beach. It's next door to where I live. I was born and raised in Long Beach. So it's not like some small city. Like, it's a big city. So what made you decide to do that?
Well, it goes back to choices. It goes back to 6 years ago when I chose to do what I did, going to the Rise, and then subsequently making further choices that were difficult and sometimes daunting, but in deciding that what's the worst that could happen. So, and specifically to the pageant, had I ever wanted and aspired to be a beauty queen? No, other than the little girl idea of wearing a crown and the little tutu and all that stuff. Yes, that's, I think, in the minds of most women, but it wasn't like that's my goal, what I want to do, never thought I would. And the choices that I'd made and surrounding myself with my long-term friends who aren't international, that are dear to me too, but branching out to a broader group too, that just accept support instead of compare and judge others, and surrounding yourself and knowing that could be possible. That made it possible for me to say, well, if I do that, will everyone understand? Do I even know why I'm doing it? I was really called to do it, and we talk about this a lot.
Yeah, you could feel it, right?
It was an intuition, I call it my Jiminy Cricket voice that kept saying, you got to do this. And I'm like, I know. And the next day, that voice came in my head again, no, and I would argue. And finally, I'm like, well, okay. So I decided then to do that. And part of that had to do with deciding that I could let my hair go gray, which was, it's not predicated on that decision, but it's just a matter of am I okay with my choice for me, not for anyone else, and not asking for the approval, which is kind of a thread through my life.
Yeah.
So I decided to do it. I decided to go ahead and do it, and decided on a Monday and did it on a Saturday. So it was
Short
and sweet.
turnaround.
And I, not to say I didn't prepare, I did. But I went in with the idea that I won just by choosing to do that. Like that choice helped me think more of myself, and that what did it matter if I even won? It mattered that I was choosing me. And to be on stage at 65 with people half your age, if I had thought it all out, I might say, what are you, crazy?
Especially a beauty pageant,
Right?
right?
Yes. So, but I went into it with a really, that morning I walked with myself, I said to myself, like, you've already won. I really thought that as I walked before I went. And then you had to go and you had to rely on yourself. It was all just, you couldn't bring people in to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a really good experience. And I brought music to share with some of the other women and tried to make it a nurturing place rather than who's doing what or looking, you're not competing, even though we were competing. So it was a really great experience. And then just talking about what meant a lot to me was that how people feel about themselves and the love that they have inside is their beauty. And allowing that, doesn't matter what age you are. So
And letting that shine through.
and letting that shine in, and I got claps when that I said that. So it was a great experience, and it was all about community service, and it's been a great bonding of other women that are here rather than all over the place too, but of non-judgment. So it's great.
Yeah, I'm proud of you because I don't know if I could do that. So I'm proud of you. And I know that you host a thing called Ageless Beauty, a group, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with that? You do it too, right? You do face yoga,
I
right?
try to.
Yeah,
So
Right?
we do all kinds of things that
I know.
we can proactively ourselves do to help feel better in your own skin, feel better health wise, food, recipes, workouts, walking, talking about subjects that sometimes you don't want to talk about, but that are good to talk about, and just have a nurturing place to do that. Tips, I do makeup tutorials. Face yoga is a really, really important thing that we do every week.
Face yoga.
Face yoga, it's facial exercises.
You're going to do it later
We're
today,
going to do
right?
it later today.
We are.
And we do exercises. We exercise our body. We try to move our mind ahead and our body. So our face is part of our body, and I've really embraced what that means. So it's all things that are helping women to feel like it doesn't matter what age they are, and that they have the beauty inside no matter what.
Yeah, it's good. And then you learned to fly at some point in your life.
I did.
I'm excited.
How was
I
that?
did.
Tell us
It
about
was,
that.
It was intense. So my father was a private pilot, and he had his own plane, and he always spoke highly about his memories of flying, and how this earth looks from up above, which I knew just from travel and commercial flights. And I thought, I think I'd really like to take flying lessons. And my father had always, encouraged it and thought I would enjoy it and supported me in my decision. And so I went for it. And I started taking
What
flying
age were you?
lessons. I think I was about 27, I
Okay.
want to say.
Young.
I was under 30. And, but it seems that even at that age, you have money, you have time, and you have to have the combination consistently to really, succeed. But I did succeed as far as going for I got as far as my solo flight. And that was a pretty intense experience because I had no idea that was the day that it was going to happen. And basically what happened is we were doing what's called touch and goes, where you fly, make a loop in the sky, you land, you touch down, and then you run the runway and you take off again. And we had done several of those. And then he said, I'm going to have you come in and we're going to go in now. She'll come to a full stop. So I did, and he jumped out, and he said, "You're ready, go." And I thought, I am. I don't know that I am. He said, "You are." So I took off, and I went up, and I did the circle, and I completed my solo and earned my wings, and felt very, very, very proud and very accomplished. It was nerve-wracking, you know. On the takeoff I was fine. On my 4 turns I was fine, but coming down on landing it was very emotional because we had lost my brother in a motor vehicle accident, and so I was in my head, you know, with seeing the windshield and, you know, changing colors with red splatters. And I just, you know, I had to really pull myself together and say, you know, I remember praying to my brother actually and saying, "Stu, bring me down to Mom and Dad."
Oh, that is beautiful.
And I like that your coach knew you were ready, but you didn't think you were ready. And what an analogy in life that is, because I think so many people put off doing what they're meant to do because they think they have to get ready. And we just have to jump in. We were talking before,
So true.
right?
Yes. It's
Your coach
like
said-
anything.
anything.
Like anything, right? Buying a house, we want to wait until. Starting a family, we want to wait until.
Yes.
Moving, well, we want to wait until. Improving, getting a
All the
better
ducks in a
car.
row.
all- you
Yeah,
know, and
overthinking
sometimes it's like,
everything.
just do it.
Just jump in.
You want something? Go for it. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't hesitate.
And doesn't mean mistakes won't happen along
Oh,
the way. In fact,
correct.
they do and will, and we learn. And that's
And
what
that's
I'm
part of
finding
life.
out. Yeah.
And I think that when we're taught in school, like failure's bad, right? They, you know, and F is bad, failure's bad. That's such bad advice in real life. Failure's part of success, and nobody's
really
teaching
is.
us that
It's
when
so
we're kids,
true. I know.
right? Failure's part of it.
I have a great acronym for FAIL.
Oh, really?
First attempt at learning.
Oh, that's good.
Isn't that a good
Love
one?
that.
First attempt at learning.
Yeah,
I like
that's
it.
good,
You
right?
know, the first time you fail, what do they say? Try and try again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is so good. And you know, failure is part of life, because we were just talking, because I love doing these interviews now. And Teresa's getting set up to do hers, and it is a lot, right? Right?
Yes.
You're starting, right?
I'm just starting and just learning, and I learned so much from that first time. So
What's your goal? If I could ask
Is-
why you're doing it.
to further my message of be beautiful and making choices for yourself
Mhm.
to like live your life with joy instead of fear. I'm 67 and my mom lived to almost 100. If I have that much time left, if God willing I do, then I wanna enjoy it and branch out and like embrace all that's possible, because I know that we are all more capable than we realize, like you found out in your story too, because you didn't think that and then you were pushed to it, and so then you have to do it. So that's what it's about.
Yeah, 30 years. You have a good
I
35
have it, yeah,
years.
so why not?
And I think living for the day, right? Not living for a number. Oh, I'm 60, I have to.
True.
Or I'm however old, I need to, or I really should have by now, or this is the year to.
Yes.
How about because it's a great day and I can? I remember when I used to run, I'm a nurse, and I was at Mass General, and I worked the day shift 7A to 7P, and many of us in the summer when the days are long would go for a run after work, and I remember a couple of nurses were like, "Why are you guys going running?" And without hesitation, and I didn't mean it in a snarky way or a demeaning way or a rude way, I said, because we can. Like, this is something my body can do, and I want to do it. And to your point, just because of a number or age, you know, and that's another common denominator between the three of us, is we all have longevity in our gene pool.
Mhm.
Your mother lived to be 100, my mother lived to be 100, and your great aunt is just
100.
celebrated her 100th birthday. So, you know, just because I'm dying to retire and leave my nursing profession at the bedside doesn't mean that I'm going to stop living or stop doing or stop, you know,
Yeah,
wanting to take chances and push myself. And
evolve
so evolve, absolutely, absolutely.
and leave a legacy, right? Because the one thing I really like about YouTube is that my grandkids and my kids can go back and watch those videos later forever, and they can my
That's a
goal,
great point.
right? My goal for my YouTube channel is to make it, I've spent a lot of money on private coaching, group coaching, programs, seminars, everything, a lot of money. And not everyone has the luxury of doing that. And I've had to be resourceful, right? I've had to, sometimes it's
Make
been
it
a
work.
huge stretch for me, right? I sold my diamond Rolex once. I sold my tennis bracelet. I rented out one of our rooms for a couple months. I mean, I've done a lot.
You made it work.
I made it work, right? But, and I've been able to afford it at other times, no problem. But whatever it is, it's been a lot. But I want that resource for people to just go to YouTube. It's free. It's evergreen. And people can just watch it and be like inspired or get tips on how to do stuff. Like it's the #1 search engine for how to. But my main goal is that I have 2 granddaughters that are 5 and 3. And I want them to know how I felt about God. I want them to know that they are capable of doing anything because their grandma did it. And that nothing is off limits for them, right? With God, all things are possible. And I just want them to know, holy crap, look at grandma in her older age. Like, what was she doing? She's doing YouTube, right? And investing and traveling and speaking. And and hopefully uplifting and serving and just encouraging other people and being a cheerleader. I feel like I've been through hell. And I was just talking, because I go to Disneyland every Wednesday, and if I'm in town. And my girlfriend and I were talking while we were there. And I said, because I have I'm talking on Easter at church, and so I've been thinking about the atonement and just really all my experiences in life. And I only have 10 to 15 minutes, which might mean like 5 to 8, depending on all the other speakers, because we're a volunteer church. And it's interesting that I could do a 10-year seminar on the atonement, right? So, in my life experience. But I said, it's interesting, I've been through hell. And I said, my tagline used to be, I'm taking buckets of water back to the people still consumed by the flames.
Oh.
And I just want people to know that no matter where you're at, your life doesn't have to look like it does, but you do have to start taking that imperfect, uncomfortable action and reset your mind and start letting go of negative thoughts, because we're all responsible for how we're being, and we're all magnets, so we're all attracting how we're being. Remember when I first learned that we're in control of our thoughts, not the other way around, and that we're magnets? I'm like, that's impossible. I don't like my thoughts. I'm miserable. I hate every aspect of my life. That's impossible. This can't be true, right? And it is true. And so I slowly started complaining less and using gratitude and putting on a more positive friends, right? Gratitude. What do you guys think about gratitude?
I think that's the way. I think that, like you're saying, who you hang out with attracts the same energy. And I feel that when I'm grateful, when I'm focused on myself, when I'm focused on self-improvement, when I'm really looking and feeling positive, things just seem to come to me and I attract them. And I just seem to have these special angels that carry me and walk with me. And I feel, when I'm down and I'm kind of in my self-pity, I'm not feeling so great, it's just a downward spiral. And then I find, I'm kind of in negative situations, I'm hanging out with people that aren't really the people I want to be with, not even by choice. Sometimes they just surround me. It's as simple as, who's sitting next to you on your plane when you board a flight or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sitting next to someone that is, engaging and you click with and you spark a conversation and you have great depth to this connection, versus sitting next to someone that, is turned off, isolated, or I'm the one who's turned off and isolated if I'm not feeling good about myself. So I do think gratitude is definitely controls a lot.
Gratitude is the basis of why we're here. And I am grateful to have had the mother that I had, who taught, and the family that I have, to have taught me my values and what's important. It's different than it was for my mom when she died at 100, starting out. So we're in a different world. The world has changed, but the core values can stay the same. In that, do you value love? Do you value God? Do you value faith? Do you value friends and family? And those are the core, and it is why I do what I do. Service to others is completely important to me as well. I wake up every day thinking, who am I meant to help today? And or reach out to. It's not that I have the control. Like you say, if you sit next to someone on an airplane, sometimes there are a closed off person that can warm up after just a smile or a kind word. And I experience that more and more as I'm making the choice to be more joyful. That people aren't looking at me, oh, there's a lady with gray hair walking by. They're looking like, oh, she smiled at me, and they're happy, and they see that I'm not worried about it. So it's just choosing joy, and it's choices that you make on how you conduct or choose to live your life, and also gratefulness to God.
It's interesting because I've been working on my talk. I now have 40 pages of notes. I have to whittle that down. But it's interesting that when I was looking at Jesus's life and the example he led, which I wasn't planning on sharing this, but it's interesting if you look to his life, right? Like for me, he's my savior, but maybe he's just a prophet to you or a figure in a book, right? But the bottom line is at the end of his life, he had his last supper with the 12 apostles, and he knew that it was going to be coming on the crucifixion up on that and Gethsemane and bleeding from every pore. And that one of the ones, Judas, betrayed him that he's with. And so he instituted the sacrament. And in the sacrament prayers, in the middle of the bread and the water sacrament prayers, he gave thanks in both. And I think it's Luke 22, verses 17 and 19. But the word he gave thanks, Jesus gave thanks in the middle of both, in both verses. And what's interesting about that is I used to think I can only be thankful when things are going well, right? But that's not what Jesus did. He gave thanks he washed Judas's feet. And he knew Judas was going to be the one to betray him, right? And then he went to the garden, and Peter, James, and John, he was bleeding from every pore. They couldn't even stay awake 1 hour with him. So there's 4 of the 12 that aren't even helping him. And they couldn't even stay awake. And I've never bled from 1 pore, much less, all of them. And then I don't think that guy I don't think Jesus had time to get a shower or, a bath after the Garden of Gethsemane, because when he left there, that's when Judas kissed him and betrayed him. So they arrested him, and then Peter cut off the guy's ear, because I've really been studying this. And so then Jesus, like you said, service, he turned outward and he restored that guy's ear. He was probably pretty emptied out and tired, right? And worn out and, unjustly accused. Then when he was hurt, tired, worn out, abandoned, mistrialed, unfairly accused, all of that, right? And I look at how he was on the cross and he said, this is your mother, this is your son. And, he turned outward, and said, he wanted to make sure his mom was taken care of. And then one of the last things he did was he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And so he was concerned about the people who were killing him unjustly. And so in my life, I've noticed that when I serve other people, even when it doesn't make sense, and when I live in gratitude, even when it can be hard to look for those things that I'm really grateful for, I find joy. I can find joy even amidst the hell or the opportunities to grow or whatever you call it. I don't know. I just feel like I should share that.
That's great. Yeah, no, I appreciate hearing it.
Yeah, turning outward, which is counterintuitive, right? We want to kind of turn in when things are falling apart.
Well, and that's the interesting thing about self-care. People can consider that selfish, but it starts with really tapping into, no matter what, you are worthy, which is what Jesus told us.
Yeah.
And then, so if we feel worthy, then obviously we're going to share that we think others are worthy. So it really is, it could be a different world if everyone thought that. So we can only do what we can do where we are.
Yeah, and it starts with us.
But we
Starts
have
with us.
influence.
Yes, because our energy impacts other people, right? Like I have a saying, your energy introduces you before you speak. Like I can feel if I want to be friends with you or not, or if I want to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
We all have that intuition, I think, and
Right?
receive that feeling and
Yes.
that energy from people that we meet.
yeah, it's important. And I think that when we influence other people by spreading, my thing is like, I like to scatter sunshine and joy. And I think that, and I'm not talking about fake gratitude either.
No.
Because I don't agree with like fake positivity or fake gratitude. I'm talking about really digging deep, and it might be like, oh, it's my warm fuzzy socks. That's the only thing I can think I'm grateful. Or I saw this flower or the sunshine on my face, right? Like you might be having a day where it's like, it might be hard to reach. I remember God asked me, you what do you appreciate about your son having cancer? And I was like, I don't know. I can't think of anything. He says, well, don't you post all that stuff about gratitude and appreciation on Facebook? Don't you believe that stuff? I'm like, yeah, but they just showed me that my kid has cancer everywhere. He says, well, what do you appreciate about that? And I was like, oh my gosh, and I couldn't think in the moment, right? But the next day, I saw that the donors were on the wall, those people I appreciated, and the orderly that made us laugh, that was taking my son to his surgery, and then the sweet lady changing his sheets on his bed, and the doctors and nurses who were there, and then the volunteers that are at the hospital cheering people up and doing nice things. And so I think that we can find true gratitude even in our worst days. It just might have to really reach for it and kind of figure out what we're made of, and do we really believe all this stuff, you know?
Which is why repeating that daily becomes just part of what you do. So it's a little bit easier when those tough times come.
Yeah, it's a habit,
Mhm,
right? Yeah. And then recently you've been, Teresa's been working on her speeches and speaking with our friend Natalia.
Which is another thing that I
Oh,
never
story
thought
time.
I did. Yes, and I never thought I would. So after winning Mrs. Long Beach, which was an amazing thing, I got asked to do a speech for my high school graduation school. And that was to the tune of 1,500 people, which I had never done before.
Yeah.
So quite, as you say, daunting. Did I think I could? Got asked and I said yes. And then I'm like, be careful what you wish for. And I worked on cultivating my message, my voice, and being brave to tell a story in the midst of a speech, rather than telling them this is what you must do, by showing what I learned through my story, which is not easy to do, but it is quite profound. So yeah, it's been great. And I've been asked to speak at another thing too pretty soon. So it's like I said before, that choice starts off. One gives you a little bit of confidence, and you make mistakes, you learn, and then you can go on to another. And it does not mean that my path is anyone else's path, but we all have paths, and just the courage to make that one step that then emboldens you to leave. Well, if I did that, then maybe I could do this. So
It's expanding your vision of what's possible in your life, right? And doing scared, the things that you didn't think you would do. But I really do believe that if we start listening to that inner voice and start and doing more of that, then even I'm not at a crossroads, but I'm at a point where, like, I'm going to a big real estate conference called Quad Up Summit on Friday in Dallas. And I really wanted to have a better idea of the direction I want to go next in my, do I want to buy RV parks, or do I want to do funding, like raise money for other people's projects or my projects, or do I want to do ground up construction and expand, affordable housing, or buy more places where you rent the rooms out, or, there's so many.
Brainstorming.
Yeah, but I wanted to show up on this weekend
knowing
with clarity. So when I'm networking, it's with a purpose and with intention. And I have not really felt, God just keeps saying, well, what would you love? Well, I would love a lot of things, like, you know what I'm saying? And so I don't really have vision and I'm going. I keep thinking it's going to come before I get there. And maybe I just need to take imperfect action in one of those directions and then see how it works out.
Can you allow yourself to believe that the answer will come to you during that time?
It could. I could meet the person there
For
too.
sure.
Maybe that's part of your going.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the purpose of you being there.
Yeah, that's possible too. Because
Be open to that.
yeah,
You know,
I can meet someone there that.
And taking action with a end result in mind and depending on that, it stops us in so many ways from exploring, being open to different possibilities. And I just really have trusted my intuition more over these years, which it's not something every day. I mean, we all, it's a work in progress. But I know that the impact that I have, the impact that you have, can be on one person, and someone will get back to me and say, gosh, I can't even tell you what you said meant to me. Or my granddaughter telling her friends, well, my grandmother does this, and like, I can help you do this too. And they're like all in awe. That if I do nothing else and just have that in my heart, I'm good.
but you're modeling leadership. You're modeling taking action. You're modeling being, you know, you're modeling being a model, being a role model, you know, and you're living it.
There's a lot to be said about having some visibility. So as much as I didn't want, like, talk about the crown and wear it and all that, it did increase visibility for the things that I want to highlight, and other people then ask me to speak and do the other thing. So it's just a path, and when you go, you will find what is speaking in your heart to do too. I agree with Elaine to trust that.
To trust it, right? Yeah, because I was like, okay, I'm not going. I'm going to make sure I have my intention figured out, and I don't.
See, and we don't have control.
Sometimes it comes when you're not looking. Sometimes it just hits you, you know, like when you decided that you needed to, you know, find Maya and follow Maya.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
just
get her
came to
name.
me.
It
You
just
should
came
hire
to you,
her.
You know?
Yeah, I'm
Right.
like, what's her name? I typed in the chat, who's speaking?
Yeah, yeah. And
Right.
what it led you to.
Yes, and I'm so grateful because she talks about me in the acknowledgement saying I met these, you know, at the end, you know, we worked on this book with this whole group of people. And it is amazing how God can wedge you in.
Right.
That's a good reminder.
Do you
God can wedge you
remember-
in.
Do you remember when we were working with Maya and we had to come up with kind of a catchphrase or a title or a subject matter, and mine was flip it, remember?
Yes.
And sometimes, you know, I'll try and do that, just kind of flip my attitude. If I catch myself in a funk or
that's a really
catch
good.
myself stalled out, and instead of feeling small, I don't know, might not, what if it does work, you know? And so just trying to catch yourself in that and flip your
What if it does
reservation,
work out?
you know?
What if I do find a person or an idea or feel more compelled or drawn to something than I with my hesitation right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really hesitation, it's just so many options and just not sure which one
And it's interesting you're talking about the focus, because focus for me is always, until now, been a challenge to say, because I see the world and things people do and I'm like, I love that, I love that, I love that, I love that. Because I see the good in all that. Doesn't mean it's all for me. So my effort right now is to focus, what exactly do I want to really focus on, and just bring out in me, and maybe that will change. It doesn't mean you have to stay in a lane your whole life, but trying something out that sometimes it's the thing you fear the most that is what you should do.